So now that we have set up what utility is, the budget constraints, budget lines, now let's look at the decisions that people make. Right? So we talked about how people's main goal is they want to maximize their utility. Right? They want to be as well off as they possibly can. So they have unlimited wants, but they have limited money. So how do they choose which goods to get? Which fruit A or fruit B, apples or oranges, and how much of each? So what happens is we all get to a point where we have certain buying habits. Now we may not knowingly do this, but we perform some internal subconscious analysis when we make our purchasing decisions. And our analysis comes us to this point where you go to the supermarket, you buy so many of good X, so many of good Y, so many of good Z, and so forth. So what we actually purchase is our consumer equilibrium. Now, that's the combination of goods and services in a whole that maximizes our total utility, and it uses all of our available income. Now, all of our available income, that's looking more at a long term as opposed to a short term. You're not going to spend all of your money every single month. You might save some for later, or you might paying off some old debts, or you may overspend in some months. So for all that, you're using all of your available income in the long term. Now, you choose at the margin, but at a marginal utility per dollar. So, for example, let's say you're trying to maximize your utility, and you're thinking about buying a boat or buying a pizza. Okay, so not exactly a realistic choice, but you might think, all right, well, I want to maximize my utility. So a boat, let's say, one boat is going to give me, let's just say, 100 units of utility. Okay. Whereas buying a pizza is going to give me 50 units of utility. So buying a boat is going to give me twice as much utility, twice as much happiness as a pizza would. So why not buy the boat? Now, intuitively, you're saying, well, that's a silly question. All right. Of course you're not, of course you're not going to buy the boat, right? Especially if it's only twice as much or especially if you're only getting twice as much satisfaction than you would at the pizza, right? Because it costs so much more. So when you look at things, you can't just think about the utility side. You also have to think about the price side. And the basic way to kind of approach this is to think of it in getting the most bang for your buck. When you make purchasing decisions, you want to get the most utility per dollar spent. So for every dollar you spend, you want to get the most utility you can. So you can't look at things in total utility. Right? You have to look at it in total utility, or you can't look at it in marginal utility. You have to look at it in marginal utility per dollar. Right? So that way you're comparing each dollar, getting the most bang for your buck. So let's look at a couple of examples of this. So let's look at the example of staying with up here. We are still assuming that we have $10, and we are assuming that an apple costs 2, an orange costs 1. So we have our marginal utility. So the utility of the first apple is 12, of the first the first orange is 8, the second apple is 10, second orange is 7, so on and so forth. Now, the boat and pizza example wasn't a great one, but here you can look at this and say, okay, well, I get 12 units of utility for the first apple, 8 for the first orange. Okay, that sounds good. So I'll get the apple. But don't forget that the apple costs twice as much as the orange. So for $1, you can get 8 units of utility for the orange, but it's going to cost you 2 to get 12 for the apple. So what you want to do is you want to look at this in, again, marginal utility per dollar. And so if each apple is $2 and each orange is $1, this is going to be your marginal utility per dollar. All right, so this is what you want to look at. So that first apple, every dollar you spend on that first apple is giving you 6 units of utility. Okay. The orange, every dollar you spend is giving you 8 units. So you're getting more bang for your buck with that first orange. So this is what you're going to be using to make your decisions. Okay. So let's look at that. So you're going to go through step by step. So what's the first thing you're going to buy? Again, your goal is to maximize your utility. And so the first thing you're going to see is, all right, well, where can I get the most bang for my buck? Where can I get the most utility? Well, you can see that here are your options. You can either buy the first apple or the first orange. Clearly, you want to buy the first orange here because you're getting 8 units of utility versus 6. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to buy the first orange. You're going to get 8 units of utility for it. Okay. Now the cost is going to be $1. Okay. And if you see the total down here, it breaks down how much utility you're getting and how much you spent. So that's the first thing you've done. All right. So now what do you want to do? All right, so that's your first decision. What's your second one? Well, the second thing you want to buy, again, you want to maximize your total utility. So let's see, $6, or you get 6 units of utility for that first apple. Now, here's the important part. You're not looking at this 8 utility per dollar for the orange because you've already bought that first one. So now you're not evaluating the first orange anymore. You're evaluating the second one because you already decided to buy the one. So you have to decide if the second one is worth it. So you're comparing 7 for the second orange versus 6 for the first apple. And so again, you're going to buy an orange here. So your second decision is to buy the second orange. Let's center this here. And the utility you get from it is 7, and it's still going to cost you $1. So now, let's see what your third decision is. Your third decision, you can buy the first apple or the third orange. They both give you the same amount of utility per dollar. So in this case, you're indifferent. Either way, you're just as well off. So let's say you buy the first apple, and then you buy the third orange. All right, so you buy this, and then that. And so you're getting, for the first apple, you're getting 6. Third orange, you're getting 6. First apple is costing you 2. Third orange is costing you 1. Okay. So far you spent $5. Now what's your next decision? Well, see the second apple, you get 5 utility per dollar. For the fourth apple or fourth orange, you get 5 as well. So same thing. So let's say you do the second apple and the fourth orange, and they both give you 5 units of utility. Second apple costs you $1. The fourth orange costs you 2. Okay. So now you're left, you have $2. At this point, you could go through and kind of play around with it. So you can see that the third apple gives you $3. The fourth orange gives you, or the third apple gives you 4 units of utility. Third apple gives you 4 units of utility. The fourth orange also gives you 4. So you only have $2 left. You spent 8 out of your 10. So what are you going to do? Well, if you buy the first apple, sure you could get that, but then you can't buy that next orange, and so you'd have to spend your next dollar on there. And so let's say you have $2 left. Let's say you spend it here. You would add 7 more units of utility. Okay, So, but then, oh wait, the apple's $2. Sorry. So that's all you have is the 4. If, however, you spend it on the orange, you could also have it for 4, and you would still have $1 left, and you could do it there. So let's say we do the third. What are we on here? The fourth orange. You get 4, and you have $1 left. And then your final decision. Again, you only have $1 left, so you can't get here. So you get the oh wait, sorry, this is the 5th orange. So we have our 5th orange, and so then you're by your 6th orange, and you're going to get 3 and $1. Okay. So what do we end up with overall? We end up with 6 oranges and 2 apples. And when we go up here, we can see it right here. 6 oranges, 2 apples. So we're at this point on our budget constraint. So this is really the way to kind of approach looking at making decisions based on utility, factoring in the cost, and also how much money you have. And this point here, this 2 oranges and 6, or 2 apples and 6 oranges, that is the equilibrium that we talked about. Okay? So that is the consumer equilibrium. It's where the marginal utility per dollar really ends up being very close for all of them. So the bang for your buck is maximized. And so that's the making of decisions.